And you would join us in the pledge of allegiance. Sorry.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you do the roll call, please?
Sure. Darcy Kaplan,
Here.
Angela Brown,
Here.
Jenny Slopes, Jasper DeChristopher,
Here.
Tara Shields, Keith Gosha.
Here.
Thank you. So since we have some audience members, I'm going to go ahead and read our adopted policy. The adopted policy of the Berlin Township Zoning Commission is that each applicant or agenda item will be given 10 minutes or at the discretion of the chairperson to make a formal presentation. Chair will then allow questions from the commission members in order to provide a timely and orderly discussion of business for consideration. Finally, the audience will then be given up to 3 minutes or at the discretion of chairperson for each speaker to respond. The chairperson may limit repetitive debate, and all comments from the audience must be addressed to the chairperson. Lisa, can you verify that this meeting was advertised?
Oh, yeah, the regular part of the meeting was advertised as a, in the Delaware Gazette at the end of last year, December.
And we have our meeting minutes from January 9th. Would someone please make a motion for approval?
I can make a motion to approve BCC meeting minutes from January 9th, 2023.
I'll second.
Mr. DeChristopher?
Oh, I read up the paper. It was 2024. Yes.
Sorry, okay, Ms. Shields?
Yes.
Ms. Slopes?
Yeah.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Kaplan?
Yes. So we have a couple of different items on our agenda for tonight. The first is that we make a motion to initiate to start the process of amending the Berlin Township zoning resolution. That's a process that we've been slogging away at for months and months and months. We've got a couple of heroes in the room who have done a tremendous amount of work with this, as well as everybody on our commission who's read and reread and lined out and highlighted and, oh my gosh, made Excel spreadsheets. It has really been a lot of work. So Jerry Valentine, you've done a tremendous amount of work. Thank you. Scott Sanders, you're here somewhere. I know it's your job, but goodness, we could not have done it without you. We also have with us Jennifer, and I'm forgetting your last name, Huber. And she has assisted the township with sort of reading over the work we've done and making recommendations, which we're attempting to adopt, or we have adopted into this final document. That document is what, 378 pages long?
350.
Give or take, give or take. It's a big improvement. I know some of us feel like it's not perfect, but if we wait for it to be perfect, we will never, ever get there. So we would like to hear, I guess, what you guys have to say as we make a motion to push this forward, and it goes next to regional planning for their review. And then ultimately, is it back to us and then to the trustees?
We have some experts here who are going to tell us exactly.
They're going to tell us how this works, because this is a big process.
Well, it's been 4 years since the last time that we did an amendment to a resolution. Some of that is COVID and others is just time passed. And in the process, we added a couple of additional articles, which was basically for the business park, so 36, 37. And after we had our first application, we found that there were some needs to update that. In the process, we also changed some of the older documents that also needed refreshed. And I guess I wanted to cover, like I said, just that it started in September, and tonight is when we're trying to make a motion to initiate the amendment be moved along the line. So with that, I invited Scott first, just to kind of cover what he did. And Scott.
Still dealing with it. I can't think I'm here.
I moved, Dean.
I'm sitting here. There's microphones all over this place, Scott. Trust me. That's not good to hear. Well, so, yeah, this is thicker than it was, but I think a lot of that is that 15 and 19 were now added in the same document. I actually should have trimmed down. I mean, I did a lot of deleting when I created the clean version, but I mean, this was a pretty aggressive schedule. The fact that we just kind of got started, I wouldn't say got started, had been thinking about this for a while and then really started in the fall. And you all know, I mean, I guess that's just for the record, just a list of things that we did. I mean, you all would have known if you look through the different copies. Just updating some of the Ohio Revised Code references to group homes, adult homes, residential facilities, that kind of stuff, and other definitions. There were some definitions that were inserted with the overlays that we put into the regular definitions, and they didn't conflict with anything that was already there. This was kind of a biggie. So R2 and R3 and R4, which have always been an issue because they were always in the wrong order. So we finally fixed that by putting them in the right order. We named them differently as the recommendations. So they're not 2, 3, and 4, they're based on their density. And then Jen pointed out that they were still called districts, which made using the R2 with the PRD was 2 districts. So I changed those 3 districts to standards. So then the PRD is rezoned with each of those 3 sections. So it'll be the same as far as what the applicants do when they come forward. It'll be just called something different. So it'll be 1.25, 1.5, and 1.85. And now they're in the right order. Added hyperlinks to all the Ohio Revised Code references. So if someone's in the electronic version, they just click on it, it takes them to the revised code instead of having to copy them in here. Took all the planned districts and converted them into a single step, and instead of having the preliminary development plan and then the final development plan later, that was the request of the township to do that way. And that's what Orange and some of the other townships are doing or have been doing. Still goes to the zoning commission and then to the trustees, just like a normal rezoning. Most of the development plan approval periods change from 3 years to 5 years, which should help in just bookkeeping in the future. Trustees now approve all the development plan extensions. Went through all the NAICS codes and made sure they were valid, since a lot of them were put in here in 2002 and that those change over time. So that was fun to do. Just clarified some inconsistencies in the 2 overlays. There was language that was in one that should have been in both. And there were some things that were different in each for no apparent reason. So that helps. And then made the physical changes in here that Jen had recommended. I don't know if she's going to speak to that or not. There were a few things that we didn't do yet, just because it seemed like not something that I could do just from, hey, you might consider some of these agricultural uses that are called out in conditional uses probably shouldn't be, and maybe they should be permitted instead. I thought that took a more significant conversation by the township at some point. Planned industrial, for some reason, was a little bit different format, so it still has that 2-step process, just because it wasn't easy to update that. It's easy enough to do. I don't think anybody's going to be coming in the near term for a planned industrial, since I don't think you've had one ever. And if they're going to do that, they're probably going to do it in the overlay anyway. There was a question about the 5-year terms of zoning commission members. That's the Ohio Revised Code gives the trustees the ability to set that. So that would just be a conversation you're going to have with them if you want a more flexible. I mean, you're not forced to stay for 5 years, I guess. So you can adjust that as you want to. And then just to clarify, some of the reason that your straight districts don't have development plans is that that's not how the zoning works on that. When you have a site that's just going to a regular industrial district or a neighborhood commercial, you wouldn't have a development plan. You would just rezone the parcel because it's either in your comp plan or it, otherwise justifies being zoned to that. And then an applicant, when they wanted to actually develop the site, would obviously show your zoning inspector the development plan at that point to ask for the zoning compliance letter, but it's not part of the rezoning. And we see very few, countywide, very few straight districts, that's what we call them. Except some townships go from 5 acres to 2 acres, and we see a lot of those. But most of the districts we see are PUDs, which are all your planned districts fall into that umbrella. So, yeah, it's good to have that short time frame, because then I was forced to stay at it and not dribble along month by month like I sometimes do with other townships. So I'll try to put a positive spin on how quickly we had to work on it. And knowing that this isn't the end, I mean, once it gets adopted, we're going to continue to look through it, and every change you make, you realize there are other inconsistencies that you've created. So there will be more adjustments to be made. And with that, that was all I was.
And I just want to thank Scott personally. I mean, I think I have an office over at Regional Planning now.
You weren't there though.
Shh, I charged, no.
You have a lot of Post-it notes.
Yeah,
Very helpful.
there's a lot of history involved, but Scott was just great with, I think there's 18 different townships that he controls or, and being able to bring all of his wisdom is all I'm trying to get at, Scott, was helpful in getting this to where it is now. So thank you, Scott. With that, Jen, the trustees decided that over the years, we needed to have someone with a little legal background to help us figure out if we had any ambiguities, that took me a while to get that word down, or if there were things in there that were inconsistent. So if you don't mind.
I don't, I'll just stand up over here. If that works for both.
Whatever.
I'm Jen Huber, law firm of Brooks, Johnson Griggs. I get to do a lot of zoning work. I see a lot of zoning codes in Delaware County and elsewhere. I was at a zoning commission last night in Union County. I was at some others in Fairfield County last week, so I get to do a lot of that, and I really enjoy it. So my lens for this project was pretty traditionally legal, clarifying. I also brought to bear my PD knowledge, my plan district knowledge, to try to make sure that these provisions, either currently or in revision, do what you expect them to, do what the township expects them to. And to that end, I raised, I think, an assortment of comments or questions for food for thought that sounds like were processed through and incorporated or overruled, which is just fine. Kind of an assortment, kind of all over the place, but I did spend most of my time with your plan districts. I would echo what Scott says, across central Ohio and probably the entire state. We're seeing mostly plan districts, very few projects are going through what we're calling straight districts, R number, C number, and the standard districts. And I think that is a benefit to township government because, as Scott mentioned, with standard districts, it's sort of what you see is what you get. If the property, as you all know, maybe the audience doesn't, if you can meet the requirements of that district, you can do whatever the permitted uses are in that district. Whereas the development plan process in a planned district is kind of what it sounds like. It's less of a cookie cutter and more of a come in, choose your own adventure kind of process, which gives the township and applicants significant levels of flexibility in many cases, control, to actually see what that is that they want, see what that's going to look like through a series of plans, landscape, signage, density, arrangement, all of it, that you simply don't have with one of the standard districts. So we're seeing a lot of that. I'm available for questions, comments. Otherwise, I like doing this work, and I'm just happy to be part of the process.
We appreciate it. It makes us feel like we've, overturned every stone. Like you said, it's not exactly where we want it, and it never, ever, ever will be, right? This stuff always changes, but it's a tremendous effort, and a lot was accomplished in a pretty short amount of time. We thought about it for a long time. Does that count?
Absolutely.
But it's a very big deal to have this proceeding. So, that being said, all the commission members have been given the opportunity to look at everything. It's incredibly challenging to do that when you've got 300 plus pages and a multitude of changes. You kind of, along the way, can't remember where you started. It's been available for public viewing, so I'm not sure for a month. So hopefully those of you who have an interest in this, will be able to look at it. And we have done, I guess, our very best as a collective to get this into shape and move forward. And we'll revisit it. This isn't the end. So any commission members have anything they want to add? No? How about down here? No? Everybody's okay? That's a very big deal. Ooh, okay.
Would you like me to elaborate a little bit on the process of where this sort of goes
That'd be
from
great.
here?
Yes,
Sure, of course. So this process is entirely guided by law. The chapter, if anyone needs light reading, has trouble going to sleep at night, is 51912. It is very dense, but it provides a host of, not always the same, timeframes for the ways that the zoning commission and then the board of trustees acts on a piece of this legislation. The zoning code in the township is the largest, certainly by width, piece of legislation that the township has. So as the chair identified this evening, all that is happening is basically the kickoff, saying we want to go from an informal review process, which is what we've been doing up to this point, to a formal review process, or like we thought about the General Assembly downtown in Columbus, and then move it from conceptual to sort of have this committee hearings and different things. That's what's happening. So this motion kicks off the timeline for the zoning commission to then have a public hearing on the proposed changes. All of those changes will be available to the public to review to your heart's content. And then, like I said, the commission will hold a public hearing on the changes, hear public comment, testimony, thoughts and suggestions. Once the zoning commission is happy with it, or happy with the way the process has gone, they then make a recommendation. They are only recommending body. The buck stops with the trustees, as it should. So they make a recommendation to the trustees, then the trustees will also have a public hearing to hear comments, questions. If you wanted to talk to the zoning commission and you talk to the trustees, that'd be just fine, and you're right under the law. So there will be a lot of opportunities for ongoing engagement, thoughts, questions, review, both in front of this commission and in front of the trustees going forward.
So, I think with all of those clarifications, thank you, everybody. And I think if you guys are ready, we could make a motion to move this forward. And very fortunately for us, got some language about how to phrase that. Anybody interested in making a motion?
So do you pick a date as part of this? Do we have to put a date?
Well, this is just verbal. I think this is just kind of boilerplate language about how to proceed.
There is a blank for a date.
Yeah.
I would recommend that you fill that in for because you're effectively setting it for a hearing.
Okay.
You have between 20 and 40 days to hold that hearing from if you initiate today. So 20 and 40 days from today. I suspect that your next regular meeting could very well fall within that time period if that's what you want to do it.
And if I can say something, you all will get what we're calling the clean copy with the date. And I will see that you all get a copy of that. You won't have it tonight, but.
Okay, so can we set a date now?
So what's the date of the next meeting? Is that what we would do?
That's,
So my understanding is
20 days, I will get this, at least. Maybe the first, the meeting in March. Would that be?
is that within that time frame? Yes, it is.
We could do
What about
March
February
12th or
Yeah.
March the 26th.
well, that's too far, I
Yeah.
think. So what about February 27th?
We could do it on the 27th.
Because the 13th or the 27th would be our normal
The
schedule.
13th,
They're totally too soon.
I would do the 27th. February
Yeah.
27th.
Yeah, so let's do the 27th then. Is that okay? I can do it. If you want to do it. Okay. I can just start? Okay, I make a motion, I move to initiate for consideration pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 519.12, a proposed amendment to the Berlin Township zoning resolution, which would, if adopted, revise certain text provisions of the zoning resolution, with all such proposed revisions being reflected in the zoning amendment text dated January 23rd, 2024, a copy of which text shall be amended to the minutes of this meeting. Furthermore, as part of this motion, the zoning commission hereby directs that a public hearing on this proposed amendment be held on February 27th, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Berlin Township Hall located at 3271 Cheshire Road, Delaware, Ohio, and furthermore authorizes and directs the zoning inspector to make the amendment available for public examination and to give notice of this public hearing by publication, all in accordance with applicable law.
I second the motion.
Okay, Ms. Brown? Yes. Ms. Slows?
Yes.
Ms. Shields?
Yes.
Mr. DeChristopher?
Yes.
Ms. Kaplan?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, everybody, thank you so much, because yeah, this is, it's a big accomplishment.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I was gonna say the same thing.
All right, do we want to recess or just? Let's, okay, so we have a second item on our agenda, and that is a presentation. I will read all the preliminaries in a minute. But we do have a situation, whenever we have a hearing like this, it is required that we give public notice. And regrettably, that public notice, although requested in a timely manner and confirmed, did not get published in the Gazette. And we do not have an answer as to why that happened. So Mr. Shavier has been made aware, and we've just kind of come to the understanding that we will not proceed with a hearing this evening, but we will do sort of a high-level overview. Those of you in the audience made the effort to come out on a cold and dreary winter night to hear this, but we will have to set a time and date certain to proceed with this. And it'll be our next meeting, and happy, what do we say?
February 13th.
February the 13th
7
at
o'clock.
7 p.m. here in this hall. The address is 3271 Cheshire Road, Delaware, Ohio. So we will do a high-level overview of this. It's a very large book. It's essentially 3 developments kind of rolled into one. What does occur tonight, we'll kind of have to repeat, but it does give people at least an opportunity to sort of hear what's going on, as well as to make some comments. But this is not how we normally would have proceeded. So just so everybody's understanding that. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to our applicant. I guess I should read the formalities. So this is an application BZC 24-001 and BZC 24-002 and BZC 24-003, filed by Peach Blow Road Limited, 6660 North High Street, Suite 1E, Worthington, Ohio. And they are requesting an approval of a preliminary development plan to rezone parcels, which I will not read, but it is plus or minus 92.498 acres, currently zoned farm residential, and change to transitional plan and development, farm residential to neighbor commercial district, and farm residential to planned commercial district. Located at 560 Peach Blow Road in North Center, and the development would be known as Oak Park.
Good evening. My name is Michael Shane. I'm an attorney at law in Delaware, Ohio, and I represent Peach Flow Road Limited, the owners of the property, and a company doing the development of this project. Also present this evening is Todd Ferris, our land planner, and Mark Mann from the engineering firm of Advanced Civil Design in Gahanna, Ohio. And we are going to begin a process. We know you're not going to get all through this tonight or even at the next meeting, but this is a process that we understand, and we're going to work with you and try to get all the answers. It was our decision tonight to move forward and do this at least initial presentation, primarily what the chair has just said. You all came out. We want to give you the opportunity to see it. We also want to get the opportunity to get some feedback from it. And so we'll go as long as the chair wants to go and the panel wants to go, and then we'll call it an evening, and we'll be back here on the 13th.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to Todd, because Todd, this is his masterwork.
Good evening. Good evening, Todd Ferris, Ferris Planning and Design. We have a PowerPoint, but I was just informed that we can't put it on your screen because it doesn't work yet. And if we show it on the wall, it looks like it's going to be too small. And I don't know if you guys can turn off certain amounts of lights, but since it's a dry run anyway, we're just going to do it this way. One for you guys, I don't know if you can share or not. Here's one for Jerry. And I have some left for, I don't know about you. You didn't want to, they're responsible for getting that thing.
I did mine. I did mine hard.
I know you did.
Oh,
No, I want some of these people to get it. Okay, so we're going to do a PowerPoint. We're going to kind of briefly go through this. I don't think I'm going to get this in as great a detail as I was going to. But I want everybody to understand what we're up to. There's 2 or 3 more. Just in case anybody needs one. So put up a board. Really waiting at tonight here, so you don't even have a stand. You guys have that. So this is a mixed-use development that we're bringing forward to the township tonight, or I guess on the 13th, actually. But we have been working in conjunction with the property owner, Advanced Civil Design, Mike Shade, with a lot of different agencies in Delaware. Obviously, the county engineer, Scott's office, with Delco, with the sanitary sewer department, and ODOT. There's probably other agencies that we've been dealing with. We've looked at streams, we've looked at wetlands, we've looked at all kinds of stuff on this piece of property. And this is, I don't know if you got, there's a lot of familiar faces here from when we brought this to, I think, once or twice in one. And kind of showed you guys, hey, this is what we could do with this piece of ground. And I think we kind of all conclusively, not conclusively, but came up with an idea where placemaking made more sense instead of more of the same. So what we did was put together a plan that does create a place for people to congregate, a place for people to go to, a place that people want to go to, and not just something that you drive through. So that's kind of the big picture here of how we got here tonight. The first sheet kind of starts showing, and again, I shouldn't be going through a lot of this stuff, but really starts showing some of the things that are key to this property. There's the North Road on the first sheet is the one that goes through Evans Farms and then through Berlin Meadows, but the county also sees that we have a fairly decent sized roadway going right through the middle of this property, basically, north-south. That serves several purposes. Number one, it enables properties to access it from other options versus 23, which is going to become more important now that 23 has started its new study to limit access to the roadway. And it creates that north-south backage road that the township and probably more importantly, ODOT and the county engineer want to see happen, which would ultimately go from Peach Blow down to Shanahan Road in some fashion or another. But this is the first leg from Peach Blow down to our southern border, which is the Worthington Arms mobile home park. That will allow that property to have access to more full service access right now. Right now, I think they're probably limited in their access. We don't know if that access is going to be more limited in the future or not with these studies that ODOT's going to do. But this gives them access then to Peach Blow as well as 23 through this circulation system. I think on that second sheet too, if you see there, ODOT is saying right now there's a traffic signal. Okay, they're saying that's probably going to go away. We don't know that 100%, but they're saying it's probably going to go away. What they're proposing, and Mark can discuss this probably at our next meeting, is a limited intersection, but it's an R cut, which basically we get right in, we get right out, and we get left in. So we have full turning movements in, but we're limited to going north if you're going out at that access. So it's still pretty functional access point. It's not right in, right out, but they're trying to prohibit that left turn, which really starts impeding the flow of 23 and do that. So those conversations are ongoing. Traffic study is being conducted, and whatever they do with traffic studies, they put magic dust on it, and then it comes out, and then Mark has been working on that diligently with things that may be. The second one is sanitary. You would think we would have sanitary right here, considering that we're right next to Berlin Meadows that was approved and has sanitary sewer service. Well, guess again, we have to go all the way back down to the new lift station and sanitary sewer service up to this site. That sewer service will not only just facilitate sewer for this site, but it also provides sewer for the other areas in the region that currently don't have it. It will service, the lots if and when they need it. They're along 23. It'll service the mobile home park if they ever need to get off of their sewer service, as well as any commercial properties that might develop along 23 as well. So it's more of a regional solution than just this property. And then the next sheet is the full development, and that's maybe kind of where I don't know if we stop there tonight or not. I just do it through the high level because it really starts getting into the nitty-gritty. But as I said, this is a mixed-use development. Beach Blow Road here, 23 is over here just off the sheet of paper, a little bit here. And I can't remember how many acres exactly we have in here. 94 acres in here. So what we're looking at are primarily 3 or 4 different uses. We have patio homes up here to the north. So those are what we would call 55 and older. They're catering towards an older demographic. What we have found and what we do see is that demographic likes to be close to a couple different things: retail and major thoroughfares. They don't like to be far away, and they like to be close to activities in schools because their children, their grandchildren live in the area. And what you see up here right now is all single family predominantly, and there isn't a whole lot of empty nesters. So this is a market in this area that we see is missing. But that's what the yellow portion is in here. So these are generally story and a half units. They average from, I think it was 1,500 square feet to 2,200 square feet in size. And again, they cater towards the 55 and older market. We have several different greenway trails through the site that accompany them with pickleball court, different areas for community gardens. We have pond overlooks and trails that go along this ditch that is central to the site that we are dealing with, that really start activating some of the space that is being left natural. The main entry, I think, into the site that's coming off of 23, again, is an extension of Drive Parkway. Again, it's going to be limited. They think that the the light's going away. They don't know that 100% because until that study's done, we don't know that, but that's what they're telling us right now. The county engineer wanted us to come at this intersection and have a roundabout, which is we like those roundabouts. But it does make a nice focal point here. And then this roadway continues over here to Berlin Meadow. So those, I can't remember, 300 or 400 units that were over there, this would be their access to 23 and to Peach Blow and give them access to the central area as well. What we're doing in the central area is creating more of a village hub where we have focused this on a green space that's central to it. On that green space, we have commercial, first floor commercial on these two buildings. And then above that, we have apartments, 2 stories of apartments on those buildings. These 2 buildings that are here would just be all apartments and they would be 3-story. Here on this side, we would have traditional retail type of uses. These wouldn't have any residential associated with it. And here we're looking at some sort of a small box boutique retailer, either a grocer or something of that nature, or potentially just some other standalone shops if that doesn't happen. But there is been a need for a small boutique grocer in this area. And we see that as being a nice activity hub where we can program the central green space for a couple different reasons. Number one, it allows the community to gather there. It's things for like farmers markets, and we can have little concerts there. We can have bands. It's good just for community gatherings, and it serves as a nice walkable area through here. And I think some of our images that are later in there that kind of show you the character of what we're looking at for this. But this is, I don't want to say urban because that sounds like downtown Columbus, but it's definitely not suburban. We want the buildings and things to be close to the street, so we have pedestrian sidewalks that are rich in detail. Like if you think Granville or something like that, just a village, something that's really cool. So that's what we're doing in this central area. Between this retail and more intense uses in the single family, we're proposing townhomes, a townhome use. So that's kind of a step down where that can either be a rental or more than likely for sale. And we've shown some architectural examples as well in that packet. Those range from 2 to 3 story. We've called out in our zoning text that those would be 3-story, but we did not, inadvertently didn't call out that we would need a divergence for that because it gets over the 35-foot height limit. So I wanted to go ahead and point that out because we need to, get that on the table. But we see that and once you see the elevations for those, and they are in this packet, you'll understand why. The 2-story they don't have the richness that I think the 3-story do. And obviously we did a little bit bigger units in that case as well. But we see the synergy of all those uses, all the interconnected sidewalks throughout the development. That really starts energizing this. It gives people a reason to be here, not just, like I said, another road going through the site. We've been fairly cognizant of our surroundings. We provided decent buffers to the single family up here to the north where we're going to be installing mounding and landscaping along this location. Along Peach Blow, we have a good setback again with mounding and evergreen screening that we provide there. We have open space along our new north-south roadway until we get closer in towards what I would call the town center. And again, providing buffers along this boundary as well as to the south. Let's see. One of those things to the south that I think that helps create that buffer is we're proposing structures between us and Worthington Arms, similar in scale to what the existing homes are there, 1-story. So what we're proposing is parking garages. And I'm not thinking parking garages where you drive up, like downtown, but just single-story garages with a nice roof line. They're about the same scale, but they provide a good buffer between the two. So it's not just mounding or evergreen trees, but we actually have a physical a physical screen there. And I think there's a section somewhere in this that you guys can take a look at on, oh, it's back towards, yeah, it's in the middle. These don't have page numbers. Had I known that we weren't gonna be, I'm gonna think I would put page numbers on it. But it kind of shows you, the thought process behind that. Generally speaking, if we put a garage that has a roof pitch on it that gets to about 16, 17 feet high, which isn't real tall, then we block the views of these buildings generally from over there. Yes,
I think you want this page right here.
yeah,
This one
that
back.
page right
So
there.
it's about
Halfway?
almost halfway back, yeah. It's between, it's called the Flats at Oak Park South section. And it's between, this one where there's some exterior view. And then that one's right before it. And then the one after that shows this. So yeah, it's about, separate your thing about halfway between, you'll find that right there.
And Angela can navigate this better than I can now, which is great. So, I mean, because I was just gonna go through it right page by page, but I don't see you going through every page tonight, do you? I mean.
No.
Exactly, so we're gonna do it again.
Right.
We're gonna do it again, but I want you guys to see the flavor of what we're doing. For sure, because, you know, the architecture, for the cottages at Oak Park, in your packet, it's what shows these are the elevations of the ranch homes that are going to be up on that northern section. So the scale of those is very residential, very residential. And then when you get to the townhouses and the architecture on the next page, it's the village of Oak Park. Again, that's a little bit more intense uses, but that's why we have it surrounding the retail area. Again, there's a mixture of 2 and 3 story, and we'll give you some different examples of that. Again, I think it's, you know, the top one is probably what you would call a 2.5 story, the bottom is a 2 story, the middle one's a 2 story, and the very bottom one's a 3 story. You see that all of them are being used in the market, predominantly more than the 2.5 and 3 story. I think it might be helpful if we did go through Scott's recommendations, since he's here. It's up to you guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the first one, which was the TPUD, or what we're talking about, the cottages and the townhomes. Regional planning had 3 recommendations that came up at the hearing. The first was to consider protecting additional acreage of wooded area. Currently, a portion of the site down in this general location is wooded. We're preserving areas down here. There's a potential to preserve some more in that area, depending on how we reconfigure that. And I think that might fall into the next comment from regional planning as well. The next comment was reduce proposed density to the permitted 4 dwelling units per acre. Right now, we have 234 units. If we were to get that down to the 4 units per acre, that'd be about 17 units that would come out of this overall. So that would open up some of that, but that would open up some of there as well, or a combination of the 2, depending when we get to that portion of our conversations. And one of these shows up on all of them that says that Road B, which is our east-west that goes out to 23, should be connected to US 23 as part of this project to provide a second access point, or Road D, which is this one up here, should be connected to Connor Lane as a public street.
Connor Lane?
Well, we're not going to connect it to Connor Lane. We're going to, we're not going to connect it to Connor Lane, but that was a recommendation from regional planning, was to make sure that goes to 23 or to connect up here to Connor Lane. Now, we have an agreement with this property owner here to build this roadway and provide sewer and water for that owner in exchange for that easement. So we have that agreement right now that we will be extending to 23. So that will happen. So we will not be extending to Connor Lane in this location. Now, we will provide a roadway that stubs to the piece of ground just south of where Connor Lane dead ends right now, because that's owned by some entity that ultimately may have to connect those two together. And that was a recommendation by the county engineer that we at least facilitate the ability for that to happen in the future, if and when they develop that, and if Connor Lane is ever cut off from 23. I think that's what they're really looking for. So this gives that ability to happen, but we aren't doing that with this project. So I want to make that clear, that we aren't doing that with the project because we do have this connection there. And those were the recommendations from regional planning, the big ones that were in their staff report. On the neighborhood commercial district, again, we call them the flats at Oak Park, and you give just some character shots of the architecture that we're trying to, looking for in this area. We showed the client different representations of what it could be. Do you want something that's more modern? Do you want something that's really historical? And it was always traditional. That was fixed. Which I figured you guys would love the traditional. So let's go with that. Let's set that as our architectural precedent and go ahead and call that as what we will. And so ultimately the architecture will be modeled after these traditional elements that are shown on the flats of Oak Park. Trying to get to the recommendations then again for regional plan. Staff recommendations. Let's see. Go through all this stuff to make sure that I understand. Okay. Consider reducing the building height of buildings 3 and 4 to a maximum height of 35 feet. Oops. Those are these two buildings right down here. The concern was that our scale compared to Worthington Arms might be too tall. Again, that's why I was showing that section so you guys can make a recommendation. If we go to 2-story, what that means is we probably need to extend this building down here farther to keep our density or our unit count the same, which we're fine doing that if we want to stay 2-story there. But maybe there's some other solutions where we step from 2-story down here, like on that arm where they might see it in 3 stories here. But I think those are detail things that we get into at a later date, not tonight. So that was a recommendation. I think the second one makes sense to me, but I definitely need to run that by you guys, is consider combining the PCD and NCD proposals into a unified PCD request to avoid the issue of residential being a conditional use approved by the BZA. I didn't realize when I did write this that that was a straight district, if I was pointing it. Apparently not. So as Scott pointed out at that meeting, that when Evans Farms went through, they had the multifamily in their planned commercial district called out as a divergence to allow that. I don't want to proceed that way unless you guys think that's something that we want to do. But I think without that multifamily on top of the commercial, this just really doesn't work. So, if that recommendation makes sense, I think we move forward in doing that. Third, recommendations, a lighting plan to be submitted and reviewed by the township during final development plan. I agree. I'm going to make sure that it's lighted appropriately, but not too much. Identify total number of parking spaces provided for each use. Yes, ultimately we will end up doing that. We got to make sure it works for our users. Road B should be connected to US 23. I explained that already. And all signs should not exceed the maximum permitted size. I don't think we're going to. We did show you a bunch of different types of signs that we're going to use. We want this to, blade signs and the different wall signs, just, rich in detail, but we're not, and I don't believe we're asking for any divergences. We just want to show the character of what we're proposing. And then last but not least, the planned commercial district. Again, similar architecture, the more freestanding buildings. more similar to what we're gonna end up seeing, probably closer towards 23. I know that those lots, when we come in through that roadway, through there, they're gonna be relatively small, so they'll probably have freestanding users on that. So this will kind of probably tie into what they would ultimately propose. So we'll have, again, freestanding users like banks or something of that nature there. So that's what we're looking at in our.
They're not mixed use then with residential?
Correct, yeah, those are just pure commercial. Pure commercial here and this one, only those, only, these buildings are mixed use. But if we combine them all together, we would probably call out sub areas within that district as well, just so we're not allowing apartments above everything. So I don't think that would be the intent, not on our end and not on your end. That's too many apartments and, I mean, I don't think we could end up doing that. But the recommendations then, if we get to their recommendations on that section, all plan sheets updated to reflect the correct open space calculations. I think we had an error and we can deal with that. The road B connected to 23, which we've already discussed. Protecting additional acreage of the wooded land. Again, if we reduce the density in sub area A, we can preserve more of that. And then consider allowing flexibility in final layout of large commercial building. And there were some comments in there about wrapping it and doing some different things, which I think are all appropriate comments. And it just, without a user in hand, it's hard to tell you what we can really do right now. We know who we're targeting, the different users, but until we do that, it's hard to commit to anything on that with you guys at this point, for even ourselves. But we certainly agree with that. In a nutshell, big nutshell, 94-acre nutshell. There's a lot of things happening here, but it's a mix. I mean, it's the mix of everything coming together in this area, right? And how do we deal with it? And you know, I think the way that we've approached it makes sense. It addresses, I think, a lot of the issues that the county's concerned about, the circulation for the vehicular. I think it addresses placemaking, and we certainly, I think, create an environment for people that want to go there and have something to be able to use without getting on 23 and driving up to one of the other big box centers, which obviously will help with some of the traffic on 23. Again, we put together some flyovers of again, character. The last few sheets are actual models that were, these aren't things, well, I guess they are things we all made up, but these are actually based on the model that's in here. So this is the character that you would see based off of this that we have in there today. And now the architecture, I hope gets better than this. We didn't spend any time on architecture. I want to tell you that. Really just showing you the spaces that we're creating and how we're going to start populating those, the richness of detail, the sidewalks, how it interfaces with the buildings, pedestrian systems, things of that nature, just so you can understand it more globally before we get into the nitty gritty of all the fun stuff. High overview. I don't think there's anything else for me to add other than nothing at this point. You have to ask them if you can ask questions. I don't know if we're to that point, but yeah.
Can I ask him a question?
Give me a moment, okay, because yes, we definitely want to have some comment. So do you just want to save our questions, or we'll actually have them in, do you want to make some general comments? Okay. Best way.
I had a few notes of just
Okay.
asking, and it might be, it's not so much that asking for an answer, it's asking, do they already have a calculation for it? And can they bring it to the next meeting?
Okay, because yeah, I think that would probably be the best way is to give you some things that we
Sure.
want you to think about and that we'll be asking you later.
Yeah, that way we have the answer.
Maybe
Yeah.
not, the whole back and forth that we would normally do,
Yeah.
and getting granular, but just maybe what our thoughts and concerns are at this point, and we'll
Absolutely. No, I'd
discuss in
appreciate that.
detail
I'd appreciate that.
at length.
At length, I'm sure.
Okay, go ahead.
The garages that you had mentioned down, backing to Worthington Arms, were those, and just having this prepared for next time, but my assumption was that those were single garage units that people would rent.
Correct.
Okay, all right, so maybe we'll talk about that again too after, but, and it could be something that people that were renting the apartment, so it's good to know, so what you picture in the actual commercial buildings and the second and third story, or if it's the entire building, you're picturing those being rental units, not selling units, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right, that was, I wanted to make sure that I had gotten the same there. And I don't know if you have this or not, but, on page 4, in the first section, and I called out the density of the four dwelling units per acre, that we right now have it as your plan, but as Scott called out as the 4.32. Do you have the breakout of the patio homes versus the townhomes?
Yes.
And you don't need to answer that right now, but that was something that I was hoping to understand.
Like if we were to separate the two areas and how?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, we don't have that, but we can.
okay, that would be good to understand for next time.
Yeah.
Are you asking for just the unit breakdowns of either one?
No, she wants a density, like what's the townhouse
Density,
versus
yeah.
that. We'll have to draw some line and show you where.
Yeah, I was playing on the county GIS map and estimating them, I understand that.
My guess is that area down there's probably about 8.
Okay,
I mean, that's what they
the
typically
townhouse
run.
area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the stuff at the top is probably, well, considering there's so much ponding up there, it's probably,
Mhm.
2 or 3
Two, yeah.
ultimately.
Okay,
But
you
it's,
guys look at that.
yes, we'll get.
Okay. This is where I wanted to ask the question too, is understanding what the green space, the common open space layout was
Mhm.
in each area.
Okay.
And whether or not, because I'm assuming that includes your ponds, but I just wanted to understand that. Then I have, oh, this was on, C4, exhibit C4. I was looking at the phasing, and I was just kind of curious how this was gonna work out, because you had phase 1, and then phase 1A, phase 1B, but phase 1C was down at the bottom that would connect to, Berlin, shoot, what is that one? Connect to Berlin, it's already there. Meadows, thank you, I'm like, we name everything.
So I said,
Berlin.
park, different
Yeah,
Berlin.
right?
Yeah.
So I didn't know if that was a typo, and there wasn't a 2A.
Oh,
So that's why I was like, maybe, I don't know, maybe.
we'll
there's
take a look
typo.
at that.
But take a look at that,
Yes,
because I didn't understand how that was gonna work,
sure.
with roadways and what was there. I had that all out. And if we could actually understand for those patio homes, so I think they said that they were gonna be fee simple, right?
No, they couldn't be fee simple.
Okay,
But they would be condos.
it'll be considered a condo
Yes.
lot. Can you get what the actual, like, lot size is?
Sure, 52 by 120.
I'll compute the acre, yeah. Yeah, I had that. Okay.
Yeah, they're not fee simple.
Yeah,
We would have to build public streets. to
well,
do
that's
that.
why I was like, I thought I read that, and so I wrote that down. I know you talked about mounding, and I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of other people's call outs. I know you talked about mounding along the front. I only saw landscaping along the sides that backed up to the existing residence, on each side
Okay.
from the patio home area. So I just wanted to understand if that really was only trees or if it was more. When I was doing this, I didn't bring my post-it notes where I wanted to finish it up. No, sorry, I'm just looking really fast. the connection of D, that, so I saw that's, like you said, a separate entity. And I'm guessing at this time, they don't have a, I'm sure you guys already approached them. Or kind of an answer if you already approached them about
Is that the one that
running the roadway, yeah,
this,
to connect.
this one?
Yeah,
I don't know if we've approached them or not, but
Okay.
the county wanted to make sure, because they need access. They're kind of landlocked, as it. Well, they
They
could go
are.
through Connor. They could go through Connor.
they could, but
But they
being
don't.
behind the cemetery right there, it's kind of a funny spot for them, because they're completely surrounded now.
Yeah, so the county requested that we give them connections on too.
Okay.
That will probably be firmed up as we get more clarity on the 23
Okay.
project.
I know I had a couple more in here. Oh, okay, sorry. I just found my highlighting. I answered that one myself. I did want to understand a little bit more about the height of those back buildings and commercial buildings. That, and how that, if there was any wiggle room there. I think that's enough of mine, and I'm sure that other people will pull out. I know I have some more highlights, but I'll pass it now.
I had the same questions about mounding too, because I couldn't really tell. I definitely would want to see more mounding with whatever, especially up in the northwest corner, because that seems to be the area, you know, touching existing homes, but it just, from the pictures, it just looks like trees.
Okay.
Also, I mean, the only thing I'm really seeing as far as open areas is a pickleball court, other than like the retention ponds and maybe some pathways. So definitely more explanation of how the open space, is being allocated to the community. In the second section, page 5, I had a question about, there's a divergence requested in the building size with the leasable space. It says that, permanent structures in the district shall contain no more than 3,000 square foot of gross leasable area. And then it talks about, like the second floor apartments, when there is a part of a neighborhood commercial structure are exempted from the maximum square foot measurement. And then you talk about like, you know, there's proposed gross leasable square footage, a maximum of 52,000, total of like 29,000. But you don't talk about like deducting the amount of what you would expect to be the apartments on the second floor. So I don't know what is your divergence? Like what are you actually requesting as part of that divergence?
Well, what we were, that code basically, and this could be moved if we combine it with the PCD, because that all goes away. But right now, the way that I read the code is they want you to have smaller commercial buildings with apartments of top 3,000 square feet. Okay, we're asking that limit be 52,000, because that's what we have with apartments above. So that's the divergence that we're asking for. So a 49,000 square foot divergence, I guess. But if we go to PCD and ask for multifamily as a divergence above, then that goes away, because that's only particular to the neighborhood commercial district requirements.
Also, I didn't see like any mailboxes or like, where's your mail? I didn't see that included in here. I don't know.
Right,
Any of that.
yeah, at this level, you know, yeah,
Okay.
those are pretty inconsequential, but I don't disagree with you.
Okay, all right. Let's see. I think that was pretty much it for the purposes of the flower here.
Sure.
And I'll say for my thoughts is, I was looking at this, there's a lot of units, and I kind of wondered, aside from pickleball and paths, are there any other amenities being considered? Clubhouse, workout area, pool, anything along those lines? It's a lot of people. And then back to divergences, I really appreciate clarity on the divergences so that I'm understanding exactly what divergence you're wanting and calling it out. I share the concern that RBC had about the density. We'd like to see it more in alignment with our zoning. And really, I think the rest I'll keep my powder dry. Those are the big ones.
Okay.
I'm up, okay. I guess, my things, I'll, add in on the open space, and kind of the definition around it. That was kind of the one thing I noticed is I understand that concept of that community green around the roundabout, but when you look outside of that community green, I think everybody's seen it. There's a lot of walking paths, but with the volume of not only the condos, the townhouses, the apartments, there's not a lot of other defined green space. So anything you can get to that and actually make it more usable. The reason I say that is it doesn't look that big on your plot diagram, but my guess is to get from your cottages all the way to that green space to utilize it. What I really don't want to see is someone has to drive to get to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of the design of the walkability. So maybe having some things, and also, I mean, in a community or an area this big, you're getting into that issue of you're congregating everyone there. If it takes me 20 minutes to get there to find out I can't use it, it kind of isn't really usable to me. So what can you do to help add some other usable areas, satellite to the other users of the community? They don't necessarily have to be as big, but there ought to be something besides just I have to go somewhere else.
Right.
What you're going to find is you're not going to go. The other issue too I see with that is, with your apartments and the townhouses in that congregation, that green space is going to become pet haven, which will create some other side issues around the ability of other people to use it if there are always animals and pickup issues and things of that nature. The density, I also kind of would like to see. I know I like the comment from regional planning around maybe trying to add a little bit, because that's one of the things I looked through, and one of the things that kind of struck me is I'm like, you're over in density, you took out a lot of trees, you want a lot of variances on moving things and setbacks and expanding, and I'm like, but it seems like you keep expanding, but other than adding more commercial and residential, there's nothing really adding back in. Like all that expansion of kind of weeding down the limits is really giving me more like leasable, sellable, and ponds. And I don't know that that's really a trade-off I want to see. The height issue, at least on the TPUD, I did mention your notes, or I saw the notes. You can still do 3-story with 35. The 42 is more to get the roofs. I would, when I was looking at it, I kind of like the idea of maybe trying to add some definition to that around the idea of if you want some height differentiation, I don't want to necessarily say, if you want a divergence to go to, I think it was 42, I don't want to see everything at 42. In other words, I want to kind of see that breakup and that differentiation, because when I look at your examples, that's kind of what I see. So I'd like that kind of spell out maybe a little more.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I did have the question on the villages. I think you already hit it. It is probably going to be all 3-story. Is that the assumption? For the townhomes? You kind of said 2, then you said 3, and you said, well, we'll probably 3. So
It just seems like that's what everybody is.
Okay. So if anything you have on definition of that, as well as here kind of back and forth, maybe it's rental, maybe it's purchased, anything you can do to let us know up front, because especially in a TPUD, that's actually in the code as to what you can and can't do. So depending on what you want to do, it may lead itself into a divergence if you don't kind of give us that information up front.
Sure.
I think that was kind of all I had for that. The NCD, I kind of went through that one, and just personal opinion, I kind of went through everything, looked at it, and I'm like, and I wondered about how Berlin No, Evans Farm. Evans Farm did this, and I kind of like the idea of it. I mean, my take, I think it is not really NCD. It's probably go more that PCD route, just saying off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And then on your PCD, the only thing I would have there is, there were a couple items in there around uses. I'd ask you to revisit that. Some uses at the end. There was one that had talked about like a certain use, you had to have an additional setback. And it had to do with, like food service and drinking places. I know you don't have tenants necessarily right now, but if you want that use in there, that could parlay into whether you also would need some sort of divergence or what you might need. So maybe do some investigation there.
Okay.
So that's it.
I'm just gonna stick with the general overall. My thoughts, reading through the kind of overall general statements in the beginning few pages, I just thought there was a lot of vagueness, like, exterior colors of excessively high chroma or intensity are not permitted, no more than 2 colors in addition. Just kind of garage doors shall not be painted in contrasting colors. It's just very vague. Same thing with the exterior, like the maximum amount of stucco allowed on any front facade shall be 30%. So is there a minimum? Could I do 2%? And the rest is gonna be all brick, and I think I know we've mentioned it before, but following kind of like the business park, elements might be a good standard. They talk about earth tones, browns, grays. You talk about the harmonious and compatible with colors of the natural surrounding and adjacent buildings, but I didn't see what those were, like providing us with examples of what the buildings are surrounding. Maybe would be a better guide for us to be able to come back and say, okay, this doesn't fit. Does that make sense? Sorry. And then one thing I was kind of thinking about as you were mentioning the traffic, from Worthington Arms and the Berlin Farms having access to Peach Blow and US 23 and giving them more access points. I kind of wanted to throw the opposite at you is that going to give people in your development access through their communities? Just kind of that overall being mindful of their communities as well. And then also if they have access to this, being Worthington Arms being super close to that community green, are they gonna now come in and they're gonna park in your commercial areas and take up space there? So it's not only thinking about the parking spaces that are being used for the commercial areas, but being used for other people who are gonna come in to park for those, not just your community, but surrounding communities as well. So think about that when you're talking about parking spaces. So I just really felt like a lot of the statements that were made in here were just very vague. And I think when it comes to the final development plan, the parameters need to be set so that it's enforceable.
Sure.
And the one was the commercial buildings too is same thing with that, is the footprint of the building, I think, can be there. We know the interior, you don't know your tenants, you don't know those things, but the vagueness of that, is also kind of like, okay, well, I understand you don't know your tenant, you don't understand what they'll want, but at least the outside, we need to be able to enforce that. So that's all my thoughts, general thoughts.
Good thoughts.
And mirroring the things that everybody else has said about the open space is huge. I think one pickleball court or pickleball courts maybe for just the patio homes, and then no clubhouse. I think patio homes, I think of people who live in that community, also taking into consideration while 55 and over is a 55 and over community, taking into consideration that 55-year-olds still have kids, and how is that going to impact schools?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we can get something from Olentangy schools that shows that, this might add 2, 3, it's pretty minimal. But, yeah, to say that it adds 0 kids is wrong, but, it is pretty minimal.
Being such a sought after district, and I've had this conversation with developers before, is that, people will find a way to get into Olentangy. So.
Right, yeah. But it's tough for a kid to grow up in a community where they don't allow you swing sets or sandboxes in the backyard too. So it's just, there are ways that preclude that. So.
I guess now that I've heard some things I want to ask too, I mentioned amenities and I didn't see a playground or anything like that. I know the back portion near the cottages, you said you're gearing that towards 55 and over, but are you actually doing an age restricted type of development?
No, we wouldn't do an
Okay.
age restrict.
You really can't.
Well, I've heard both sides and I think it is written into the ORC, but
We did that. We
we
did that
don't
on,
love it, right?
we did that on the project down
Right.
on Shanahan.
Right.
And that night in this room, the prosecutor says,
It's just one.
I got a problem.
Okay,
Because we have to follow federal law.
right.
And so it's a touch and go situation.
Right.
One of the things is that as development occurs, and particularly in this one, it was like the last big, large tract of ground, everybody wants to demand, we're gonna be putting a major trunk through this property. Well, Delco will be putting it, but we have to bring it under 23. We have to bring it back to the property, and then they're gonna run it through to service other areas in Berlin Township. They also, the sewer will go to the northern edge of the NCDCBT property, and then it will go, from that point, it has to be on private land, so the county would either have to work that out, get through the cemetery, but eventually up to Connor Lane. And in doing that, that adds significant cost, the size of the pipes, everything. And then just this roadway. I mean, the roadway out is cheaper than we thought it would be, just because we're not gonna have all the turn lanes for lights onto 23.
Right,
But it's still expensive.
certainly.
And so, there are a lot of things that, that communities can do, and the bottom line is the developer has to make money off of this. Otherwise, it isn't worth doing it. And if you don't do it right, it'll turn into something that you don't like.
Absolutely.
So I just think that we you have to hit a point where everybody can feel comfortable.
Right, but we also want it, are interested, and I'm sure you are too, in having this be a place where people enjoy living.
Oh, sure.
So that's our perspective. Okay, if you have other comments, then welcome those, but if not, I would like to turn it over to our audience members, keeping in mind that this is not, our typical hearing. We do want to hear what you've got to say, and this is just the start of the conversation, so we hope that you will return as we proceed. Anybody got things they would like to say? Yes, go ahead, please.
I have a question.
You state your name and.
Sharon
address, please.
Desard on Connor Lane,
Full address.
305 Connor Lane.
Thank you.
My concerns are with sewer and drainage. We have septic tanks or aeration systems. I think all of us on Connor Lane, will we be forced to get rid of those with this plan?
Not with us.
Okay, that's not part of your plan.
No,
You're not forcing us into sewers.
No.
They are.
You don't offer it though, right?
What's that?
The sewer will be offered or not?
Well, the sewer that they want to service
They won't go
Connor
down
Lane
Connor
will be
Lane.
off of 23.
Yeah.
How that happens, when that happens, we have no control over. All we have to do is bring it to the property line at the northern property line of the NCDCD, that's where the road comes back, that northern edge, and then it goes on to private property, and we don't bring that forward. That would be something that the Delaware County sanitary engineer will have to work out. But again, I think that's a prudent thing to have happen, because if you have septic systems, whatever type of system you have, they will ultimately fail. And septic fields fill in, it just becomes a problem, and you gotta have an outlet. Whether that can be brought through this development, we weren't asked to do that, but, you know.
And the drainage, we've lived there 47 years. And we spent lots and lots of money on problem drainage. And one of our builders, our only builder, who built on our house twice, felt that there were drainage lines in the farmer's field where we were going to build this project that were probably dumping onto our land when it was farmland. And I'm just wondering, is there a plan for drainage that's foolproof in this project?
Yes, there is one that's conceptual at this point in time that has been run through the county to show that it's feasible. But those plans get developed in full detail as this moves forward. This is the very first step, which is the rezoning. They basically say, you can do it.
Right.
Then, once they say you can do it or we're okay, then we start moving forward, and then we start saying, okay, the water that goes into your backyard, we can deal with that here. That's when they start getting into those studies. The law in Ohio and federal and everything else, we can't increase the flow to any of your properties. We have to keep it there or make it better. And usually what we see is these farm fields, there's nothing out there today stopping anything, right, other than grass or whatever. We're gonna have streets with catch basins and ponds and everything else. Granted, we're adding rooftops, and that creates some stuff, but we are required by law to control all of our drainage and to deal with that. So you should see an improvement, but it won't be worse, but you should see an improvement.
Maybe it will help, yeah.
Yeah, usually that's what we see, but I would be remiss if I told you.
A lot of those ponds that you see are detention basins,
Right.
retain that and discharge it into the Havens ditch. And that's why the Havens ditch is being kept open, so that we're not going to impede that flow going through, and we will retain on the property that which is necessary and discharge it in accordance with state standards.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments? Yes,
Just
sir.
a question,
I'm sorry,
when to
sir.
start, 305 Cotter Lane. Just to.
One point.
Hey, good.
There you go, I'm gonna hold it for you.
I didn't get all this. This area you were calling the cottages,
Yeah.
all of this, okay? And these are the different models, obviously, from, okay? Are these patio homes, you said?
The patio homes.
Okay. Are they connected one to the other here?
No, they're all freestanding.
They're all freestanding, okay? And the approximate price of these would be what, if you can guess?
Gas, probably starting low fours and going up to $500,000-$600,000.
And what is being done between these and these?
Well, we can do lots of stuff. What do you want to happen? I mean, we're gonna buffer in that area.
You are?
We're showing buffering. There's been some questions as to exactly what we're gonna do. I think we'll study that and have a better explanation for that. We can do mounding and plantings, we can do fencing and plantings. We can, these are your backyards that we're backing up to. And ultimately, we want you guys to be happy. And this is the first step where we all get to say, what do you think you want?
So you're gonna make the back of the house not just flat back, so it looks like a movie theater you can drive in?
Flat backs with no windows or doors.
No, but a little facade to it.
Yes, and actually, we do have rear elevations, I don't know if they're in that packet, but we have enhanced elevations of that.
In the back.
Yeah, we do have elevations for the rear.
When you pay that price, that starting price, each month, same thing you want. That's what's being there.
F-Con sometimes are kind of plain on some of them, but these two, these are F-Con.
I mean, you go by some of the trails on some of these houses as well, flat, and no character all in the back of that.
Right, the architect on these did a really good job. These are ones that actually we got approved over in Orange Township, at Aurora Farms. So they're starting those right now, so we'll be able to see them coming up. And then you'll be able to take a look at that. But they have the garage back from the front, which I know everybody likes. And then the rear has different treatments. Not only the front, we have several treatments, but the rears as well. Good point.
Are there any other comments?
I remember two more.
Okay.
Might come back in.
Let this gentleman go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Scott German. I'm a property owner at 774 Peach Blow Road. Just wanted to bring to the owners and developers' attention, we do have a septic use agreement there. Basically in the cottages at Oak Park under lot 61, 62, and 63. They'll just need to be addressed.
And what do you have there?
The septic use agreement.
Oh, so you have a septic field on there.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, we'll have to check our Altus or our title survey work and maybe Mark, take a look at that, because I think we did an yeah, we don't want to take away your septic, unless we get your sewer. But, yeah, okay.
Anyway,
Can you give somebody your name?
Did anything show up?
No, not on the title search, but we'll have to look again. You've got a copy of the agreement, then you can,
Yeah, I got an email I can get you.
Yeah.
A copy of it's on the recorder website.
Okay, I'll let you and Mark coordinate that. Since he's a civil engineer, he can deal with that. I'll deal with trees.
All right, Jasper, go ahead, please.
No, okay. I had two more things, and now I have to see if I can remember. Okay. One, I have noticed on several of the drawings, you keep calling out this existing specimen tree.
Yes.
Could you bring detail on what that is? Just because I can tell you right now that if I try to find out or look in there, I'm probably not gonna have any access to be able to see like what.
You can see it driving down the road.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah,
well,
you show it right next kind of that, right near the circle, but if you had more detail on.
I haven't taken a picture of it, but our environmental guy says that's probably been there a couple hundred years. He says it's the biggest white oak that he's seen. I took a picture of the one, there's one at Orange Township's park. That's on the west side of the park. That's a huge oak tree. I took pictures of it. I haven't seen this one up close, but they have similar canopies and it's just magnificent specimen. So somebody kept it forever and didn't destroy it, but that's the namesake, obviously, is a park in that.
So I had that one, and then the only other thing I remembered now is I think there was some language on kind of in the NCD and maybe the PCD that had to do with like exterior kind of architectural type detail. As I read through it, now I remember that because of the way this isn't kind of your typical commercial. Think of where I drive by, there's the front of it and the back of it is all loading, and we don't really care as much what it looks like because no one sees it.
Right.
I think the language you had for your architectural detail kind of lended itself more to that, where these are kind of the opposite. These are really four-side, has to all kind of have that similar structure and feel because the fronts and the backs are really all switched around. In some cases. So there isn't really a loading area where you can put, I won't say ugly part of the building, but a less desirable side of a building. And because of the way your building is, I don't think you can have that. So you may want to look at that and just kind of make sure if you need to call out something a little different.
Yeah, no, good point, good point, yeah, it needs to be foresighted.
Just a question too. The one divergence you wanted in section 1 with the residential, the divergence on the structure separation from 25 feet to 10 feet. So all of the, I'm assuming that's for the patio homes?
Yeah.
You want them to be 10 feet apart.
Any other comments or replies?
The only thing I forgot to mention when I talked about sewer and the water, one of the other things, and not to minimize it, is that we are providing connectivity to the mobile home park. Now, I have articles, we'll make copies for you all, that in 2003, the director of Division 6 said that we would have a light to those mobile home residents, that their rights for full access into their mobile home park were taken away from them. 23 years later, or 20 years later, we are here and they've done nothing. And so I just think that that this is one of these things that this project's going to have to do to help those people eventually be able to get out to a traffic light. And so all development is not bad. And all development solves a lot of problems.
We like development, we just want to really talk about it a lot, a whole lot.
And they've been kept in the loop.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I kind of thought they'd have some folks here.
I thought so too.
Make them our meetings.
I've talked with the manager and I've talked with their home office, and they are very much watching what's happening on the 23.
Yeah, certainly. Okay. We exhausted everything, and like I said, this is just the start.
Oh, yeah.
That. It's regrettable how this kind of unfolded, we're sorry. But we knew this was gonna be a number of meetings, and hopefully this is still moving the ball.
We thank you for all the information, Mike. That was really good feedback.
Okay, good.
Since I only come up here, obviously, for the stuff that I deal with, we want to do a PowerPoint. What's the best way to do that? Should we bring a screen or something? What has other people done? Or does everybody bring boards? We can do boards, it just seems.
Weren't we gonna be able to connect to this?
Yeah, we haven't figured out how to be able to separate the streaming.
Bring a tech guru. That's you know how. Okay.
Well, our tech guru couldn't even figure it out.
So the answer is we don't know.
I will try to figure that out.
Yeah, we know we have
That'd be great.
fancy capacity.
I also have a white sheet that's a portable,
I just wanna be able to have
portable
that.
screen.
Okay.
It's an actual portable screen I can bring.
Yeah,
I mean, the township can have it.
I'll coordinate with Kathy on that.
Yeah,
It's just,
it's a good question.
There's just so much stuff. I don't want to bring 700 boards, and it's difficult, and I want everybody to see.
Yeah, it's helpful to have everybody see this.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and we'll reach out to Kathy and see whatever, we might have access to all that stuff already.
Yeah, it's just we can hang on the wall. It's an actual screen.
I know there's that one that Joe Thomas always brings, but that's like an old movie screen thing, and that thing's huge and cumbersome. I don't want to deal with that. Okay, well, I appreciate your time.
We appreciate yours, and sorry it's not quite what we hoped for, but moving on.
So we will be February 13th
February
at
13th,
7?
7 PM in this building, time certain.
Okay.
Is the mailing going to go out again for that meeting?
No, they will
Just
not notify
notification.
the adjoining property owners again, and, it's kind of a formality. because,
Yeah, Darcy, they'll have to redo the entire hearing because tonight doesn't count.
Right, no, I know it doesn't count as a hearing, but they don't have to notify adjoining property owners again.
Yeah, they'll have to notify.
They do?
Mhm.
I
They'll
think
have to
I
start-
think so.
I thought Kathy was planning on.
They'll have to start from scratch because it wasn't advertised properly, so it'll have to be
We're getting
advertised.
some conflicting information, so I probably will have to talk to
Kathy, Kathy said earlier she'd have to send out everything.
Well, and then we got a different, a different opinion from another lawyer of ours. So, I mean, we want people to come, and this is always on our website. You can always call the office. We want this to be transparent. We like when you guys come, okay? Nothing like having nobody sitting out there and we're trying to figure out what people want. We don't know.
And should everyone have received notifications? Because
If
not
you're
every,
an adjoining
Within
property
200
owner,
feet.
yes.
just within 200 feet.
Correct.
Because I know some people who did not, that they're farther away.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
still on Connor, but
Yeah, and we picked up all people within 200 feet. And we do it by map, and so we made sure we got everybody that we were required
sure.
to do.
But anyone's welcome to come.
Oh, I know that, I know that.
So, yeah, we welcome that input. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, come on.
We do have a limit, because we did hit a limit.
Oh, yeah, we
The
have
previous
5
meeting.
fire.
But, I mean, if you have everyone from Connor Lane still,
You can't exceed the fire recommendations, or they shut us down. We don't want.
It says 81, I think.
I think we'll be okay.
Okay, we appreciate you being here. Do we have any other business? This is Jake's last meeting.
This is my last meeting. I have accepted another position elsewhere, and so this will be my last BZC meeting with you guys. So
We
I thank
appreciate
you
having you.
I thank you guys all for your hard work, and I
Same
appreciate
here.
every single one of you.
Sound
Chair, do go ahead and continue, so a motion would be moved to continue
Okay.
this case to the meeting that you want it to be the 13th, would you say?
Yes.
13th at 7 PM in this building. Do you have someone make that motion and create that?
Someone curious?
And by the way, we were in Jerome Township last night too.
Oh, were you? Who's turn?
So we saw her last
New friends. Okay. You wanna make a motion? Go ahead. please. Yeah, just to continue.
I will make a motion to continue BZC 24-001, BZC 24-002, and BZC 24-003, filed by Peach Bluff Road Limited, 6660 North High Street, Suite 1E, Worthington, Ohio, 43085, to February 13th, 2024. Continued to February 13th, 2024. And
7 PM. in
7
this-
PM
in this building.
in this building at 3270 Fisher.
Second.
Second.
Ms. Shields?
Yes.
Ms. Jody Christopher?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Kaplan?
Yes. All right, motion passes. So we'll see all you guys and your friends and neighbors on the 13th. And Jake, do you have any final loose threads out there that we need to know about?
I don't think so.
Passing them off to Jerry, who also is heading for warmer climes. So.
Slow working.
All right.
After 1:30 meeting here.
All right, we're not quite adjourned.
Jerry, when do you return?
Well, I was giving
Okay, all right. So you'll be here in April.
Hello, all our neighbors. We are still not adjourned here. I don't have my.
We're still not adjourned.
Sorry, hello, happy neighbors. We're still not adjourned, so if you don't mind, keep quiet. We're almost done. You don't have to stay.
You can leave.
Just, you don't have to, yeah. No rebel rousing, okay? Thank you. Okay, I don't think we have anything else though. Am I correct?
I wanted to ask a process question. Okay, because you explained it, but just to make sure that we actually understand. So now, you're saying that, so the next thing is we're going to hold on the 27th, we're gonna hold an open forum and go through all of the changes. So we need to be prepared, and will Scott present the changes then, or who will present the changes?
He's available, but that's up to you guys at this point. I have to turn it over.
Well, that's why I'm like, because you won't be here.
Well, even if I
Yeah.
was at this point, I'm not.
Yeah,
I mean, my understanding is he was gonna be here, but I haven't confirmed anything.
Okay.
So,
So just asking for clarifying, like,
Right.
where.
Right. And once again, procedurally, this is just not something we do very often in 4 years. Does RCP have one last review before that hearing?
RPC.
Or I do say RCP, I don't know why I do that.
They actually, Scott told me tonight, he's already done that.
Well, yeah,
This,
so,
this Thursday, he's going to, in front of their monthly RPC meeting, he's gonna announce it as an item, just so everybody knows what's going on. But basically, at this point, we can make a motion to forward it to the trustees with whatever changes you guys still want to make to it.
okay.
And that's the next step. RPC is basically done.
Right. Yeah, I kind of wonder if they didn't hand it
Well, it's kind of unique because the RPC is actually the edit, or the publisher of the document. He maintains the original copies and all that. I've got each of the drafts that we've done with the comments made section by section in a file. And Kathy has 2 hard copies of, I'll call it draft 3, but it's the clean copy because we found that it was kind of tough to read with all the,
It was.
yeah. So this is a clean copy that obviously Scott already knows, and I'm gonna take a log, I'm gonna work with him while I'm on the out of pocket to come up with items like we did originally of a spreadsheet of here's specific topics versus the clerical stuff.
Okay.
The stuff that was recommended, Jennifer made comments, but Scott said, that's a discussion point of how do you guys want it? And that's up to you all. So I was hoping to come back or give you guys a list of those things that whenever you're ready, you can talk to, because this is going to be an ongoing process. We're just trying to get an updated resolution to take care of our 15 and 19, the changes that were made for R2, 3, and 4. There's 1 step versus 2, and I know there's still discussions about that. There were some major issues that were addressed in what's there, and we're hoping to get that through to the trustees and say, give us a new resolution, and then, and I don't want to say it as a joke, Megan said to me, then I have a year with a fine tooth comb, and I said, Megan, I don't really need a fine tooth comb. But supposedly, it's an ongoing process, and one of the jobs I have now is to write the process that we use to update it. Because over the years, it's always been the zoning saying, boy, this needs to be addressed, and we talk about it, but we never list it as an item and make it an item in this meeting to make the changes. Got a bunch of good people. Tell me what you want, and we'll make those changes. But this one is pretty much, we're trying to move it forward.
So that's where I'm a little bit confused, because we're having the meeting on the 27th for public comment. But I think as we've talked about it before, we were initiating this instead of initiating it for consideration. What we've been talking about is that we were doing a motion to amend, which would send it to the trustees. That's not what we just did. We just did a motion to review it with the township on the 27th. So coming out of that, do we then, I guess from there, are we then going back and?
That's when we make the recommendation to the trustees.
Well,
But maybe not, because if there's anything that needs to be more consideration, and then we go and do an amendment. Okay, so it's really a couple steps away from an amend to the trustees, recommending that it be amended and sent to the trustees, right?
You're on that path.
Yes, but we're a couple steps away from it.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
hearing away.
Okay.
Whether that hearing takes one night or
If the
4
hearing
nights.
goes well, if the hearing doesn't go well, you have to re-amend everything, you have to come all the way back to the beginning again and do the. That's right.
No, it would just be
You
taken
can
into
make,
consideration.
so basically what you did today is you started, you have a starting point, right? Which is the text as of today is the starting point. You can now what you're doing then would be a recommendation of a change to the trustees that they can implement or not, but on the same page, makes sense. they would, I would suspect. But you don't have to start over, you don't have to start over. Now, if you said, like, it's so far beyond recognition, or it's so out of whack with what we want, you could, but I suspect it's not, because we've already been working on it for so long. This just creates a formal starting point. So the document that you initiated today
Kind of like a draft, but not a
is
draft.
the new fresh draft,
Clean
the
copy.
new fresh starting point. And if you thought you had more things you wanted to change or revise or reevaluate, you could do that.
Okay.
And make that recommendation part of your motion up to the trustees.
Maybe it was just kind of a misunderstanding, because I don't know, I could have been the only one who thought this. Maybe not, that the month that they just had, that it's been on the website, that was the review period, and to bring any concerns tonight in order to, before we sent it to the trustees. But that could have just been a misunderstanding.
It is by all accounts, I mean, a very complicated
It
process.
is, yes.
If it helps you, think of this text amendment process.
Oh, I understand it now,
Just
that's
like-
where I was.
Exactly.
Because like I said, I think there was a misunderstanding, maybe of the process of thinking that we were sending to the trustees tonight, because that's what we had been talking about. But instead we're holding it open for public comment to talk with the public, even though they've had the time online.
And you never get, there's no harm in having
No,
informal
exactly.
conversations, legally or otherwise.
Yeah.
That's great, that's fabulous, right? And that's how most folks do it. They have one that's in progress for the better part of a year, of when they have a few moments between rezonings, they pick up their text, they look at it, they think about it some more. Hasn't been initiated, they'll initiate it when they think it's ready to go. Sort of the same thing as what you've been doing all along up to this point, so that's very typical.
So that's what we would do over the next year then for the fine tooth comb stuff. After this amendment.
Oh, afterward?
After the
Yeah,
motion,
'cause that could
after
be the
this,
next round of amendments.
after this clean draft, we can do that.
And the biggest concern was there were so many ambiguities and issues that came up during the last few hearings that we wanted to clarify, which you all helped to do, and it's there, it's in writing. If there's more changes, my thought was that we would have an amendment or just notes attached to that along with the clean copy would go to the trustees.
Yeah.
At the next meeting is what I thought, to get the process going. And I knew that regional planning had to have their comments on it, and that's what Scott verified. He's got it on the agenda for this Thursday.
Okay.
So I don't know what's gonna happen at the next one, but that's,
Okay, the next one is where
you guys can make, if you,
could be recommending.
and I think Kathy's gonna send you both the PDF as well as make a hard copy for everyone on the commission to review. That's-
Okay.
It's likely that you wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if you said, we've looked at this thing to death, we've looked at it nonstop, we see it in our dreams.
Yes.
And to get it onto the trustee, that wouldn't surprise me. On the other hand, if someone in the audience, finer tooth comb than I have, says, we saw this thing, this section in section 1, 2, 3, 4, what do you think about that? You might go, hey, that's a good point, let's make that a modification that we recommend.
So that's what I do for a living, writing standards of the world, right? And it goes out to every country. And then we'll go out and we'll get editorial comments. And we get technical comments. When we get technical comments, we're screwed, right? Because then it's gotta come back and we have to take all the technical comments and fix them. And say, yeah, that's a problem. And then I gotta go back to the whole system and take it back forward. And then they have to look at it again. And a lot of times, there'll be new people in the company and they'll make comments that are technical again, and we're stuck again. And we can go through this process. Right now, I'm in a process that's 2 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm going to France for a week to try to get through all these comments because we can't do it 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
Internationally, it's too hard. So, and then once it gets that far, then it says, okay, then it goes to a vote. And then the vote fails, it goes back again. I mean, it's a back and forth process that takes 3 to 5 years.
Hopefully we don't have that many. And I think we've kicked this can a lot. I mean, like I said, We wait for perfect,
Yeah, so
we're never
they-
gonna get
gonna
there.
get there.
Yeah, so somebody comes in and they have a lot of technical
But
issues.
they have some-
It's like,
You know, very big point, sure, you're right. Hopefully there's been enough time and transparency, but that's not. I'm counting on this going well, let's figure it out. I'm ready. And then we can do some more.
I did want to make mention I know we were considering the 26th of March or whatever it is, that's spring break. I know we talked about that
Oh, I
last
don't
year.
know, that someone had said, yeah.
So I know we talked about that last year, like, I can't remember if we
We had
moved
to
it up
cancel
a
it.
week or we
Yeah,
canceled
actually,
it.
we moved it up a week, I think.
So I don't know if we want to consider that for.
That's a good point,
Why
yeah.
don't we send emails to Kathy if you've got times you know you're not gonna be available,
Okay.
so that we can, I mean, if we're not gonna make quorum, we need to come up with something else.
I will be,
Yeah.
I know I will be gone, so I don't think we had anything right now.
Well, let's-
But
But it'll, yeah, before we know it, it'll get on the schedule
Let's
and
do
then
it
we'll be in
now.
trouble, so, yeah. Okay.
All right, Jerry, anything else? This is your last meeting for a minute too, huh?
Jerry's dreaming of being on the beach.
when
Sipping a drink.
I wanted to throw this out there, and I had this idea, and I wanted to mention it to you guys, take it or leave it. I was kind of thinking, it's like, I feel like whenever I go through stuff like this, and I take, the time to do it, same thing, zoning resolution, whatever it is, I feel like I come here and sometimes I have questions about things, and I know, I'll talk outside of, this, and then we come in, and it's like, developers are here, we're talking, and it's hard, it feels rushed. So I asked, Megan if it was a, just possibility, and again, this is just an idea, is either starting our meeting at 7 and setting developers to come at like 7:30. And that way we all have time as a commission just to, get any questions answered or clarifications, something through this book that, we're on the same page before, they come in front of us and present. Cause I feel like sometimes if we're off, on things that, might need clarification, it just might be a good like administrative time for us, like if we have the administrative before rather than after, or vice versa,
Cause I think we have to be in this building technically.
Yes.
And I can take a recess and go back in there, because when you have a recess, you broke up the meeting, you go back into the office and talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some sunshiny kind of rules, it's not like we're in
Yeah.
Right,
executive
that's
session, we have to
Yeah, we can't.
observe those things.
And that's what I was thinking, it's not, I don't think it would be anything that we shouldn't be talking about, it's just like, if I have a question about a specific, like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, our zoning resolution says this, but this is what this says, can we clarify? And it's
We
it's
talk
just,
about that,
we
yeah.
talk about that, because sometimes I feel like maybe I don't understand it because I'm newer, so.
No, I know what you mean.
Again, it's not anything that I don't think that we shouldn't be talking about,
Right.
in front of a developer, like that they couldn't watch on. But it just feels like when they're here, they're ready to present at 7. It just feels rushed, and then,
Yeah.
we don't get time to.
So I'd say, first of all, don't let them rush you. I mean, this is our time to understand. And, it does feel sometimes like you have crosstalk, like you're like, wait, what's the 15%? What's the buildable area? Wait, your density, you feel like you're being challenging. And you're just trying to understand. I don't think we can do that without the developer being able to respond. So.
I guess that I'm not saying necessarily questions for them,
Okay.
but maybe like.
Before we
I think it
open
would be
that
too
up.
Before
tempting to
we-
lead into the
And that's what
actual,
you-
like, subject matter. You know what, I know what you're trying to say, but I almost think it would be.
You mean for people to start joining the
To
conversation?
start being like, oh, well, but this is what I mean, you know what I mean, like, and then we would have the people in the audience, like, I definitely understand what you're saying, I
Yeah.
agree with you, but I think it would be kind of,
I was
it would
thinking
almost
more
be,
like
it
zoning,
might,
like more toward, not necessarily directly related to the developer or but like say if it's like our zoning resolution says this, And I'm questioning something because of what, I'm not clear about the zoning resolution or something, not necessarily, and it may not even have to be, 30 minutes, if it's 20 minutes or something like that, but I was just thinking it gives me, I get not nervous because they're pressuring me, it's just like, because I need clarification
No,
on something.
I definitely agree with you, like, or even with like the different codes, like, try out like which one's allowed rental, like.
Right.
Percentages and like, oh no, we should have done this, and I'm like.
Because if I'm reading it on my own, it's like something I would call you and ask you, can you clarify this for me? And sometimes I'll have to dig
But I
into the
think
ORC or
It
something
would
like
almost
that.
be one of those things that it would take one developer to like, then if it didn't go well for them to like say that they didn't get the opportunity to have.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I'll play devil's advocate, because this is my last meeting for a while, is I would hate for a developer to think that we had a quorum and we're making discussions before they were here.
We're trying to go ahead of time, get consensus ahead of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That's true.
Even if we
yeah.
didn't directly talk about their plan, I think it would almost look like we were.
Right. Well, and I would say, except of course Jake is leaving, is I have spent more time than I would like to think about, where I bring my book in and I sit there with the zoning inspector and go, okay, wait, help me understand that. So
Yeah,
they're a
yeah.
resource, and yet we're gonna be a little deficit in resources for a minute.
Yeah.
Scott Sanders is a big help too. He's got great people in his office.
And for the last few times, Lisa, Orange has provided us with support. And I think I mentioned that to Megan, that during the time no one's near, is that maybe she could be kind-hearted to give us, not give us, but provide some
Request.
support if we have something.
Well, Lisa, every
That's
day.
right, for a small fee.
That's what she's telling me all the time. I'm playing.
But yeah, I mean, we can't discuss things like that as a forum, even though, like you point out, we're not doing anything wrong, but it gives the appearance that we're, I don't know, ganging up.
And see, and that's things that I don't, I
Right,
don't know the
Right.
rules and regulations behind, that's even more.
yeah, I mean, the gist of it is, we're not supposed to influence each other. Like, somebody with strong opinions can interpret something one way and somebody else interpret it a little way. And we want you to have all that variety of feedback and thought process, but it gets dicey when you do it as a group. So, reach out, ask questions, and, as long as you're asking it appropriately, you're not like, that ugly developer from last week, what was he trying to do?
There's no dumb question.
But it's, completely fair to say, hey, on this TPUD, they're talking about, they're gonna be owned by the builder. Is that okay? Because I thought it wasn't. Those kind of, sometimes I have to go, wait, did they just say that? I mean, did I understand it or did they say it differently? Use us as resources, and none of us know everything. We wish, and then once we do know everything, we get a resolution.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we did it all the time in Colorado. We always recess. Almost every development.
Yeah, every time you get used to the rules, we'll change them, so.
But again, we had a whole different format. Every development had to be voted on by the community.
We wish.
And we can put a bill in.
Very
They can do
different.
that in 2 years.
Not how we do
Stop.
that, unfortunately, or maybe unfortunately, I
They can have to, it's easy to do.
don't know. So you say.
But it goes to vote to the community and then they come and say, yes, we want to vote.
Spearhead those referendums, go for it.
Control.
Yeah,
It's control.
lots of annexation, I see.
I see,
But
yeah.
when they're done, when the vote goes in, they can't come and ask to change. You're done. It tells you how many
I
houses.
don't think anyone in Ohio does it that way, though. I think we'd be,
You're controlling the growth.
well,
And
for that, but.
it becomes a very, people want to live there because it's controlled.
It's like the keys.
That's
Of course, we like to think that
House
about
prices
Berlin
go
Township.
up. I mean, because it's controlled.
I will point out, we've got many minutes that need signatures. Every one of these little yellow sticky notes means somebody didn't sign something. So if you have time before you go, please review that. Got anything else, please? If it's okay, I'm going to call to adjourn this meeting, and Godspeed, Jake, and safe travels, Jerry. Thank you.
Yes, drive careful.
And for coming, and for good, and you want to the next meeting?
Yeah, so now.